This is probably one of the cleanest intro animations that I have ever made. When this website loads, one image fades in at the center, blooms open and then orbits around the word mark in one continuous motion. And then when you enter the site, the images leave the circle one by one and relocate into a 4-column grid, and the editorial homepage reveals itself gently. And in today's video I show you how I built this animated editorial style website with AI, from the design concept to generating the visuals and the animations. And I created all the visuals with the Higgsfield MCP directly inside Claude, and I'm very happy that Higgsfield is also the sponsor of today's video. I already use it in almost all my videos, so it felt like a very natural fit. And if you aren't familiar with Higgsfield, it's a platform that gives you the newest AI models for images and video in one place. So it's an all-in-one solution for any creative who wants to use AI in their workflow. I definitely recommend checking it out, and thank you for sponsoring this video. And also make sure to stick around to the end, because I prepared a free gift for you as a thank you for watching. If you've seen my previous videos, you may know that I always start with a design concept in Figma before I write a single prompt. And I do this to lock down the design and to create reference images that I can attach alongside my text prompts later on. For this one I wanted a light and editorial feel, so apart from the images I use gray tones only, black for the body text and a lighter gray for the navigation and the eyebrow headings. Then the typeface is the rounded poppings throughout the entire design. And I alternate between a regular weight for the body copy and an all caps medium weight for the eyebrows and the navigation buttons. Then for the section below, I place the projects in a 4-column grid and box them in with vertical and horizontal hairline dividers. And those dividers are really what give the grid that editorial feel that I was going for. Besides the homepage, I made a second design, and this one is purely there to show the model what the loading state should look like. So the images are arranged in a circle around the word mark, and that would have been very difficult to explain with text alone, and in my experience you get a lot closer to what you actually envisioned when you attach a reference image. Plus, designing it yourself is what makes the website feel like your own work, and now that almost anyone can build a website, I think that matters more now than ever. Now that the design concept is locked down, I need the actual visuals for the grid, and you can generate those on the Higgsfield website itself, and here you can see all the tools that they offer, so you can pick from all the newest image and video models here. But in this video I'm using the Higgsfield MCP instead, and the MCP is a way to connect Higgsfield to Claude, so I can talk to Higgsfield and generate images and videos directly from within the Claude chat. Which is a big advantage when you are building websites in Claude, because I don't have to prompt for my images in a different app and then download it and then prompt again to implement the visuals back in the Claude app. Instead I can directly talk to Higgsfield inside Claude, and that way Claude can implement everything that I create with Higgsfield right away. Setting up the MCP takes about a minute. You take this URL, which you can also find on the Higgsfield website, and then in Claude you open the settings panel, go to the connectors tab, and then here in the top right you can add a custom connector. Here you can paste the URL, set Higgsfield as the name, and then add the connector. And then you're prompted to log in, and once you're logged in you can prompt for the images and the videos right here in the chat. Then for the visuals themselves, what I like to do is give a few examples of images that I like and describe what it is that I like about them. For this project I was mixing warm bright toned images with high contrast black and white ones, which you can see here, and that combination is a big part of that editorial feel. And the way that I think about it is per image. So in some cases I want no motion at all, so a very still and calm shot. And in other cases I want one with a lot of movement, like this image here for example. This has a lot of motion blur in the background. And here's another example of an image with motion, because the model poses in a very playful way, as if she's halfway through whatever she's doing, so she's walking rather than posing. I then ask Claude to include those elements into one single prompt, and I ask for that prompt in 2 paragraphs. The first describes everything in the frame, so the environment, the model and the layout, and the second describes the feel of the image, the color tones, the camera specifics and the overall vibes. And I split it like that so the elements in the photos stay separated from the visual style. If I don't like the pose but I do like the look, then I can reuse that second paragraph for a different image or across an entire shoot so everything stays consistent. It basically works the same way a filter works in Photoshop. Once I'm happy with the prompt, I ask it to generate the image with Nano Banana at a 2K resolution in a 3:4 ratio. And 4K would be overkill for a website, so 2K is more than enough here. And I repeat that for all 12 images. One thing that is worth mentioning is that with the MCP you give up a bit of control. If a generation doesn't quite match what you asked for, the model can decide on its own to run a second version, and that can cost you credits. And that happened to me once, so I told it not to generate any additional images without asking me first, and that worked perfectly. With all 12 images generated, I have everything that I need to start building, so I move over to Claude Code. I create a folder on my computer for the project files, and inside that folder I add a folder called Visuals. And that's where I drop in everything that I just made. And then in Claude I go to the Claude Code tab, I select that project folder, and I choose the Fable 5 model as this is currently the most advanced model. And I set the effort to high and finally paste in my first prompt with the reference images. And I structure that prompt in a very specific way that I now use for almost all my website builds. I start with a goal because that's the main focus for the model. So in this case, a single portfolio site. And then I mention the reference images and I point it to the visuals folder. Next, I describe the loading sequence. The screen is empty, one image fades in, and I explain that all images are stacked behind it in that exact same spot. So the visitor reads it as one single photograph. And then the stack opens, the images spread outwards and settle into a ring that slowly starts to orbit. And at the same time the word mark and the button fade in at the center. Then I describe the transition to the home page. When the visitor clicks the button, the images leave the circle one at a time and travel to their positions in the grid. And here I added one specific rule: an image only departs at the moment it reaches the far right of the circle, which is the point where it sits at 0 degrees and faces you completely flat with no angle at all. And I did that on purpose because if the images left from anywhere in the ring, they would come in at a weird angle and the whole relocation would look awkward. And this way every image starts its journey from that same flat position. After that I describe the page from top to bottom, so the header, the white space, the about section and the project grid, and I try to be as specific as I can about everything that I see. Then come the design tokens. And I close with a few notes on the motion, so everything eases softly and nothing snaps. And here you can see the first result, which was already close to what I had in mind. I only made a few small tweaks. I asked for a faster orbit animation and I asked it to follow the image order from my own reference image, because in the first version it picked images randomly and that felt a bit chaotic. I wanted the relocation to run from the top left to the bottom right instead. And I also asked for the homepage to fade in only once all the images had landed, so the two don't overlap. And Claude understood the adjustments perfectly and now the transition looks a lot smoother. So the site is finished and it works, but every image in the grid is still completely static. And this is where I use the Higgsfield MCP again, because it works inside Claude Code as well. So I prompted for a video of the first image in that same 3:4 ratio, where the model briefly looks at the camera and shifts his pose towards it. And the important part here is that I asked to keep the original image as the start frame, so the handoff between the image and the video is invisible. And then I asked for that video to only play on hover. And this is a perfect example of what I talked about earlier, where I generate visuals and implement it on the site in one single prompt. So I never have to leave Claude, which is just super convenient. And these animations are very subtle, but they make the website a lot more interesting. You can do this on almost anything, a restaurant website, your own portfolio, whatever it is, it takes very little effort, but makes the entire thing a lot more interesting to browse. And there you have it, an editorial website with a unique loading animation and beautiful visuals made with Higgsfield and Claude. And you now have everything you need to build something similar yourself. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you'd like to see more designs that I built with AI, then please subscribe to my YouTube channel. And as a thank you for watching, I added all the prompts, the website files and the visuals as a free download in the description, so you can recreate the whole thing yourself. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.